all the things that you do.
Good morning. Hey, it's a small yet intimate room today, full of the smartest people at the conference. This fellow down the front here saying, I'm not sure about that. No, you are. You're in the right place at the right time. Were you here yesterday? You weren't, were you? What's your name? Pardon? Marcus? Everyone say good morning to Marcus. All right. So what you missed yesterday, mate, okay, there's a couple of you who weren't. Were you boys here yesterday as well? No, you weren't either. Sad. Because you missed a really good, in the afternoon, we had a big discussion, didn't we, on uranium. So we had a lot of really good companies talk about uranium yesterday. And as you would know, being the astute individual that you are, the price has gone through what? What's the price gone through now? $80, $80 US a pound. So for a lot of people, that's really exciting. We can now consider coming online with production. But here in WA, we have a little bit of an issue, don't we? So what's our issue in WA, team? We talked about it yesterday afternoon. Brandon was instrumental in holding a panel session at the end. And we know that in WA, we've got all this lovely lithium. I think we've got about 15 nice big deposits already identified, with potentially more, but we can't get it out of the ground. Over the border in South Australia, what are they doing? Ripping it up, digging it up, and they're selling it and they're making good money. And we've got that potential here this morning. So not this morning, for entirety, but we're going to talk about that this morning, Marcus. Is that what you're interested in? Everything. All right, good on you, buddy. So I'm going to ask our first presenter to come up onto the stage and join me. And as he comes up here, I'm going to put a question to you, because the title of his talk is there a future for mining uranium in WA? And I suppose I should actually introduce Damian Connelly. So this is Damian. He is the Principal Consulting Engineer for METS Engineering. Would you make him welcome first up? So using your scaling system that you gave us yesterday, Brandon, so we had a power session at the end and we had a sort of open table discussion, and he gave us two rating systems. One of them was 1 to 10, with no 7, and the other one was yes or no. So we put a statement to you, 1 to 10, or yes or no. So I'm going to use the simple one, which is yes or no. So let's hear a shout out from you for the question, so that Damian's got a little bit to work with. Is there a future for mining uranium in WA? Yes or no? 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
All right, over to you, sir. Please make him welcome again.
All right. Thanks very much, Chrissy. The title is there a future for mining uranium in Western Australia? So, normal disclaimer, I don't want to be sued for what I say. It is my own personal opinion based on my experience. So in Western Australia at the moment, as we know, uranium mining is banned. We've got no nuclear power generation. We're basically dependent on coal and gas and diesel. And also energy costs in WA are incredibly high. In Kalgoorlie, you're paying 20 cents a kilowatt hour. In places like Sweden, you're paying 2 cents a kilowatt hour. I guess Fukushima, the tsunami did a bit of damage, and I guess that kept the uranium price low, but the world has actually changed, particularly greenhouse gases. WA industry would benefit, and so would the government actually, in terms of royalties and so on, and economic activity if there was uranium mining in WA. I think we all know about global warming, and it's driving change in terms of renewables, and Australia has a big challenge by 2030 and 2050, so we have to cut our emissions. We've basically got to go to clean power, and nuclear power is, I guess, a key transition technology. In the industry, we are actually doing quite well. There's not a lot of publicity about it, but the change is occurring. People like Liontown have got a mix of, or when they build it, will have a mix of solar, wind, LNG, and the diesel will only be a backup emergency. IGO, Nova, Bollinger, Goldfields at Agnew, I think they're 65% renewable energy. Rio Tinto, BHP and Woodside, there's a lot happening out there. You don't necessarily see it in the press, but it's actually happening now. Also, I guess, there was an ABC Q&A program, and I guess they talked about nuclear power, and our Australia's climate change and energy minister, Chris Bowen, said nuclear energy is a distraction. He just dismissed it. He said, you know, in Australia we suffer from a lack of innovation, which is absolute rubbish, because Australia, particularly the resource sector, we are a centre of excellence. We're the best in the world. And I know that because I go around the world and I see other people. South Africa's gone backwards, had a brain drain and so on. We are very innovative, but to just close your mind and rule it out is not good. I guess timing is everything. There's no doubt that in the past, it would have been unprofitable to develop the resources we've got in WA, but that's changed. Now, the price has gone up, as Chrissy said, $80 a pound. That's a completely different situation to where we were quite a few years ago. Nuclear power is clean, it's cheap, it fits with the renewable sector, and I guess around the world, places like France have been using nuclear power for a long time. China is really moving. There's a number of the new reactors under construction. China just dominates. They're going to build lots of them, and lots of other countries around the world also are going to build nuclear power stations, because basically we've got to get off fossil fuels. And for big base load power, nuclear power is the way to go. And also, I guess people talk about safety. Pebble bed reactors are completely different to some of the reactors they had at Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. It's like comparing a computer today with one that was developed 20 years ago. It's chalk and cheese. So uranium demand is growing because of this. There's a concern about structural deficit in supply. There's restarting existing reactors, and I guess there's a reduction in some of the reprocessing material that was available. And also I think people like BHP in South Australia have stopped selling on the spot market. So also I've been to Sweden a couple of times this year, and Sweden is a classic case. They have 5 nuclear power stations, they have hydropower. They were going to close them, and then there was a change of government, and then the Ukraine war happened, and the government said, wow, energy costs are going through the roof. We must keep those nuclear power stations going, because energy costs are 2 cents a kilowatt hour. To close them would have been stupid. Now they've even gone further than that, and they said, we're going to build new ones. So how the worm has turned in Sweden. Sweden is a very progressive, vibrant mining industry, and they obviously can see the change that's occurring. The other illogical situation is that it's okay to mine uranium in South Australia. It has been for nearly 30 years. There's been no incidents, been no problems. Olympic Dam is a world-class facility. It's the 4th largest copper mine in the world, and the uranium comes along with the copper. The two of them are intermingled. It's the world's largest uranium mine, and you don't see any issues, any problems. It's good for South Australia, but it's not good for WA. They've also got in situ there. The in situ did close down when the price was low, but that's an economic situation. So there's a completely illogical situation. Also, a lot of the testing of public support, public views in the community are changing. I think even some of the comments from Cauldron Energy's CEO, Jonathan Fisher, said it was hypocritical for the government and unions to accept nuclear-powered submarines, and yet it's not okay to have nuclear power or small reactors in Australia. What's the difference? It's just, once again, it's illogical. We've also got a number of really good deposits like Yeelirrie and Kintyre, Mulga rocks, so on and so forth, and they wouldn't take a lot to develop. And also, of course, at the moment, we've got drill rigs parked up, so we could be doing exploration as well. Nuclear power is not allowed in Australia, and once again, that's rather illogical when you see what's happening in the rest of the world. Canada allows uranium mining. They've got some significant mines. And looking at Australia's power mix, or if you want to look at, say, WA's power mix, a lot of our power is based on coal oil, natural gas. Renewables is only a fraction. Where are we going to move to by 2030 or 2050? Where's the planning? Where's the energy going to come from? At the moment, our energy costs are high and we have to change. So once again, the government's asleep at the wheel, or if they have a plan, I don't know what it is, they're not putting it out there. So there is a future for mining uranium in WA. However, we need the government to lift the embargo. And I think there is a growing demand for WA uranium, so it's not as though there isn't a market. I think we also need to consider nuclear power. And I guess the WA mining industry needs to pressure the government. They need to point these things out. I think the government's asleep at the wheel because the world has changed. There's big opportunities here. Public views are changing. The government's out of step. There's an opportunity for royalties. There's an opportunity for exploration, for development, construction, and it's just not happening. So this is, I can understand it, 10 years ago, the price was low. Projects probably weren't going to happen anyway. But now the world has changed and we should be making use of the opportunity. And the only thing that's stopping us is government. And of course, governments change and governments react to public opinion. So I think the mining industry there needs to speak up and bring about that change. Thank you.
Has anyone got a question they'd like? Because we've got 4 or 5 minutes up our sleeve. Is there anyone who'd like to put something to Mr. Connelly? We're going to go out and have an intimate chat with him at the booth afterwards. You can do that as well over a beer. Wait, we'll come down here. Brandon?
Thank you. Great presentation. Brandon Munro, Bannerman Energy. In your experience talking to people across the mining sector, I'm interested in what you think the attitude of other miners are towards lifting the ban. So I think, yes, they would absolutely draw the link once micro reactors and small modular reactors are available to power their mine sites, and we've done some work on that. But is it just out of the conscience of other miners, or are they opposed to it? Are they worried that it might create a public opinion backlash against their mining operations? I'm interested in what the broader perspective is.
Yeah, I think because of Fukushima, once again, there's an issue in terms of safety, public perception. Places like, say, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, South Australia, there'd be ideal base load situation there for nuclear power. But the problem is no one wants it in their backyard. It's very hard to sell. At the same time, you've had ANSTO have got a nuclear reactor in Sydney, and that's been operating without any issues. It's only small, but it's been operating for quite a period of time. So I think mining companies, ESG is a big issue, social license. You see what happened with Lynas in Malaysia. They spent a lot of money. They've lost their license so many times. They've just gained it back again. So social license is very important. So I don't think that mining companies are going to go out and look at, say, small nuclear reactors unless Joe Public is aligned with that same view. Technically, it's all good, but I think public perception and image is very important. All right.
Is that all right? Okay, so thank you very much. Would you please thank Damian, everyone? Very insightful, and go and have a chat with him afterwards. Just a reminder of our timings today. So 10:45 we will take a break for morning tea. 1 o'clock we've got lunch. 3 o'clock we should be finished this afternoon, and we are having drinks for our Christmas party, and you're all welcome to stay and join with us. So we're trying to finish a little bit earlier so we can sit outside and have more of a chin wag and chat to our presenters and our companies as well. All right, question for you. Who's on the ball? What is the atomic number for gold? It is. Yell it out. No. 79. E79. E70, very close. So in October 2021, that number was chosen as the name for our next company to come up here and join us on stage, E79 Gold Mines. So our next company here at Resurgence. So they're a West Australian focused explorer. They've got a very strong strategy of putting money in the ground. Their aim, of course, is to make a big fat discovery and make a lot of money for them, and potentially you as for them if you choose to listen to this story and think, I'd like to invest with them. Would you please make welcome our Chief Executive Officer, you are now in it, Ned Summerhayes. This is Ned, everyone. Make him welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone for coming in early, and thank you to the organisers for putting on this couple of days. As mentioned, my name's Ned. I'm just going to talk to you about E79 gold mines. We have our projects in Western Australia. Here's our standard disclaimer. Really, the pillars of the company and moving through to how to be successful really comes from having a good management team with a track record of discovery. I'd like to point out Deborah Lloyd on our board won the 2023 AusIMM President's Award, which is a wonderful accolade for her. Apart from good management, you need good ground. We've got about 1,000 kilometres of early stage greenfield projects in prolific greenstone belts. Once you've got the ground, you need the strategy. The strategy really for us is create new data sets and put your money in the ground. Best way to make it a discovery. So just a little bit more on that strategy. So what we're looking for when we're creating new opportunities is look for a large greenstone belt, preferably a very prolific one, lots of gold, but look for the underexplored parts of this. Try and get a large land holding, get as much of that belt as you can. We like to create our own targets using newer technologies that have come through. Maybe people looked at this 40 years ago and the technologies have changed. Use a bit of methodical exploration, test around, but really creating your own data sets, geochemical, geophysical, and then using that to drill. And then, of course, as with any strategy, just keep reviewing. There's always opportunities coming up, and see which ones fit your strategy and carry on from there. I'll just grab the corporate slide here. You can see our board, led by Chris Cairns, with Deborah Lloyd and Peter Ironside on the board as well. I'd just like to point out too, there's a couple of things. Let me just see if I can find the pointer. One is our cash position. We're still at $3.3 million. Which will fund our exploration going forward. And the other part of it is just these JMEI credits which are available to us. So if we do make a nice discovery, we have the ability to raise money with a benefit to the shareholders through that JMEI credit, or if we see an acquisition that we like, we can use that money again with a direct benefit to the shareholders. As mentioned, we have two large-scale projects in Western Australia. The first one is in the Laverton South area. Oh, it's a bit hard to see there. So this is the Laverton Tectonic Zone, and our tenements in red down here. Our second project, where we control almost 700 kilometres of ground, is up here in the Murchison, and is our Jungar Flats project. Focusing in on our Laverton South project, you can see on the map, shaded in grey, running roughly north-south, is the Laverton Tectonic Zone. So this is a large-scale, deep-seated shear. This is the shear responsible for all that gold endowment. On the left, you can see a table of all the large deposits, but what's not immediately apparent is that the largest of those are all clustered here, south of the town of Laverton. So the northern and central parts of the Laverton Tectonic Zone, they've had these big discoveries, they're reasonably well explored, but the southern part of the zone is underexplored, where E79 is located down in here. So while we say that the southern part of the area is underexplored, it has had recent exploration success. So in the last 10 years, there's been 2+ million ounce gold camps discovered. Rebecca sitting here and Bombora sitting here. So they are now both owned by Remelius Resources, who in the last year or two have set about consolidating this area. They can see the value in this area, and they're within 20 odd kilometres of most of our tenement package. So it's always nice when you have a larger player in your area who sees the value in there. So what we've done, again, following on from our strategy, is at the Pingen ground, which was the northern one in this area, we've done about 350 kilometres of gravity surveys. This is really delineating where the greenstone lives, soil sampling, creating the targets, and we've drilled about 50,000 metres of air core drilling. That's primarily been in two areas, Target 3 and Target 4. These areas both sit in prospective geology. They've both got the big ticket items that we're looking for: demagnetized stratigraphy, evidence of large-scale fluid flow. Most of the work has been at Target 3. We've found a lot of smoke. We're still searching for that high-grade section, but we've found multiple 1 gram hits. Each time we drill, we're finding higher grades, but we are certainly still searching for the bigger prize in the region. At Target 4, a little bit to the north, this sits along the Pingen Fault. The Pingen Fault runs for about 30 kilometres. There's historic workings all the way along. There's higher grade open pits in the north, the Patricia open pits. There's more recent open pits in the south, and we sit roughly in the middle. Through some of the demagnetized stratigraphy, again, a nice geological zone, we'd like to find gold. We've hit 12 metres at 1.12 in the air core drilling. This is in the weathered rock. This is an in situ anomaly and something that we'll certainly be chasing up. Further to the south is our main exploration area of Lake Yindana. So this was a big one when we listed the company. It's a first mover opportunity. So what we've found is that this area was historically mapped, and what we were drawn to as a company was this area was mapped as a granite, which is just less prospective for gold in the Yilgarn Craton. When we looked at the regional magnetics, we started to see a few lineations and a few concepts that it just doesn't, it's not all granite maybe. And this discouraged, the fact that it was granite discouraged the historic exploration. There's only 65 RAB holes and half of those weren't assayed for gold. So what we did is we undertook a bit of a review of that early stage drilling. They had hit greenstones, but they didn't assay for gold. So we undertook large-scale gravity and found about a 25 kilometre long greenstone belt, pretty much totally underexplored within the Laverton tectonic zone, one of the world's greatest areas for greenstone gold. So we've created a new search space and we set about, we're currently testing it. So we're about 95% of the way through a 10,000 metre air core program. The gravity picked up not just the greenstones, but intrusions within the greenstones. So we're testing multiple targets, and there is the obvious gold areas nearby, which we have similar rocks to Rebecca and Bombora. There's also nickel that comes down in this trend. All these get tested for, our company is called E79 Gold Mines, but we do test and explore for everything we can. That air core program should finish up in the next 3 or 4 days. Results will start trickling in and we should have news flow probably early 2024. And it's just worth pointing out that when you create one of these new search spaces, the largest deposits are generally found first because they have the largest footprints. Our second project in the Murchison Greenstone Belt, another province with about 30 million ounces of gold endowment. We have control about 700 square kilometres of this, but really the big deposit in the region for us is the Big Bell deposit, which sits on the Big Bell Shear, which comes all the way up through this tenement package. So we're exposed to about 60 kilometres of this Big Bell Shear. And the area has obvious gold endowment, but nearby, look, we also have base metals. There's a VMS system just to the west. There's lithium potential, there's platinum group, there's iron ore. It really is a bit of a treasure box in this area. So what do we do when we have a long, when you have a long elongate greenstone zone? We do our gravity, we find the areas of it. We've done that. We did about 550 square kilometres of gravity. We identified the greenstone belt going through. It's probably about 15 kilometres of greenstone that was previously unknown, just sitting under cover, but the gravity obviously can see through that cover. We've undertaken a large-scale auger program. We've tested about 30 kilometres, so about half of the greenstone has been tested. The other half is awaiting some heritage clearance, and then we'll get in and do that other half. But of the half that we have tested, we've found gold anomalism, copper anomalism, and also lithium anomalism. When we went out to the field to check out these zones, we found and mapped a number of lithium-bearing pegmatites, all very early stage work, but somewhere around the 0.2, 0.3 lithium oxide. So this is low grade, this is early exploration work, but their presence and the fact that they're in swarms just bodes well for the area, which we were really there for the gold. So this is just a little add-on that we've been working on recently. The next stage is we'll drill test these with the gold and the copper, and also now with the lithium. So the southern area, I've talked about this a little bit. We undertook the gravity survey, but nearby we also have a 22,000 ounce small gold prospect, and that's coming in on an oblique angle to the main greenstone belt coming through here. So there's a lot of targets, there's a lot of areas to test, and now we know a few different commodities to test for. So that's kind of the work that we've been doing. Going forward, we'll get these air core results. We'll get the northern part of the Murchison ready for drilling. We'll get the southern part of the Murchison ready to create drill targets, and we'll carry on drilling and testing, and we'll be reviewing lots of different projects in the meantime and see if anything fits our exploration strategy to go forward. That's about it from me. If you have any questions, we're just at a booth next door. Please come and say hello.
Thank you so much. Now, for those of you who are new to the room, Marcus, I don't jump up and say thank you very much because we're recording it obviously for the ASX. I try and give a little bit of a break there so we've got that nice, clean edit point, but you guys are more than welcome, Tom, aren't you, to clap uproariously as we go. Now, if you have a look on your programs in front of you, you will note that the man with a very good eye for a project and a particularly nice taste in ties, Mr. Poli, was supposed to be joining us from Matsa. Paul has been laid low with COVID. We just had other plans for him today. So hello to you, Paul, at home. We know you're watching from there. Instead, we have mild-mannered Chief Geologist and ED Pascal Blampain joining us today. And I was looking through, our list of offerings for today on your little menu, and I'm thinking offering number 2 today is a nice little, it's a little G&T, if you like. It's got a gold base with a little bit of a lithium twist at the side of it. So let's find out how it's being served up. Would you make Pascal very welcome, everyone?
Good morning. Thanks very much for that introduction. Happy to be here today to talk about Matsa and in particular what we've done this year and a little bit about what we plan to be doing in the coming 12 months or so. Just a standard disclaimer. I'll go through to the next slide. Just a snapshot on the corporate overview here. We've got four on the board, including Paul, that was mentioned before, myself, Andrew, and Ratha, with a very good mix there of commercial and technical skills. We have 936,000 ounces of gold resource at 2.5, which is a very healthy sort of grade for a largely open pit type material. Our top 20 shareholders own 59% of the company, and we're well supported by BNP Paribas and Deutsche Balaton, German and Singaporean shareholders. As mentioned in the introduction, we see ourselves as a traditional Western Australian gold explorer with a little bit of a lithium twist, and I'll talk to that a little bit later. So our flagship project is the Lake Kerry Gold Project, centred in the Yilgarn here in WA. And in terms of the regional setting, we've got just shy of 450 square kilometres of highly prospective ground there in the Laverton tectonic zone that Ned just talked about a little bit earlier. We're surrounded by Anglo Gold's Ashanti Sunrise Dam gold mine. Just to the north, we've got Wallaby and Granny Smith, and then down south of us, we've got Carrisu Dam and South Deeps, owned by Northern Star. So we're in a good neighbourhood there. And you can see here we've got quite a number of prospects and deposits that have been identified so far. In the last 3 years, we've increased our resource through drilling, etc., by 213%, from 439,000 ounces to 936. So we're just shy of tipping the 1 million ounce mark, and we expect to be over that next year with some additional drilling. We've got at least 94 kilometres of strike extent of the key regional structures. That's what I was looking for. So these structures are well defined by magnetic signatures, and off that typically some splays in terms of cross-cutting structures locate some of the major deposits there in the Laverton area. So for Sunrise Dam, for example, has got a strike of 45 degrees to the northeast. So has Red October. So has the Fortitude North prospect that we've been drilling. So we've got a couple of key orientations that we need to consider when we're doing the drilling out there. The Lake Kerry Gold Project, some of you may not be aware, we've got 3 gold mines. So the gold mines are the Fortitude Gold Mine, which we did some trial pits in 2018, 2019. We shipped about 100,000 tonnes of that material to Sunrise Dam, and they processed that for us. So we have a very good feeling for how the ore behaves at the mill. Devon Pit Gold Mine, we're progressing that through approvals at the moment, and we expect to see some feedback from the mines department and approvals coming in the next few months on that one. And Red October Gold Mine, we did mine that and sent that material to Sunrise Dam as well. We've placed that into a production hiatus at the moment while we consider some additional exploration drilling to go forward. Our key project in terms of exploration focus over the last 12 months has been the Fortitude North deposit, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So the Fortitude Gold Mine, as mentioned before, so 3 trial pits. We're expecting to expand that and amalgamate that into one big pit. Here's some details there. The resource is just shy of 500,000 ounces. The mining study that we did on this, probably nearly 2 years old now, returned a pit that's about 1 kilometre long, 250 metres wide or so at its widest point. That was optimised at a gold price of $22.50, and we used a gold sale price of $2,400. That at the time made $95 million free cash flow. At today's price of around about the $3,000 per ounce, there's an additional $600 clear profit on this project. The pit produced about 132,000 ounces. And as I said, that was optimised at $22.50. So if we optimise that at a higher gold price, say around about $27.50, something like that, we'll bring in a few marginal ounces. But basically that probably would return about 250,000 ounce project. Devon Pit, that was the latest study back in May this year, returned a profit there of around about $37 million for 40,000 ounces produced. There's been a bit of additional drilling that was completed in August, September. Assays are starting to trickle through, so we'll have some results about that in the coming weeks. At Red October, as I mentioned, we were mining that. We stopped mining and identified that we needed to do some additional drilling. We've got 244,000 ounces in resource there. A little bit more than half of it is tied in remnant pillars and life of mine pillars, but we do have a couple of clear exploration fronts and potential new mining fronts that we can introduce into a plan or a design. And the main one there that you can see is the lionfish resource, and in particular, so these zones here highlighted are areas where we're very confident with some additional drilling would bring in some new resources into the equation there. So as I mentioned, 936,000 ounces in resource, 2.5 grams. I guess the question from our perspective in terms of a business case is how do you value the project, considering that our market cap is around about 14.5 million. So our friends at Alpine Capital produced a few slides for us in terms of assisting us to work out, well, how do you actually work out the value of that project alone, let alone the company. And you can see here from a few mergers and acquisitions that have been completed over the last 18 to 24 months. And these are pre-development ounces. They're not actually producing assets. The average there, the average resource there is just over, the resource grade is just under 2.1 grams. So Lake Carey at 2.5 grams fares quite well. In terms of the transactions completed, you'll see here the average transaction was around about $88.63 for each resource ounce. You can see here where Matsa sits at notional EV value of around about $14.60 per ounce. So we're, in terms of the comparative peer review there, we're very undervalued. There's a recent transaction completed between Lyndon and Lord Byron, and they completed at $72 an ounce. So again, that just demonstrates that some of the activities there are substantially higher than our current market cap. Fortitude North, I mentioned before, that's been our key focus in terms of exploration over the last few months. We're very we're mindful that there's significant opportunity here to define a really good deposit, potentially turning that into a mine at some stage. But the key focus here is to do some additional drilling, exploration drilling, but basically to start into the resource definition type drilling and start adding some ounces there to the books. You'll see there a number of intercepts during the course of the last 2 to 3 years. The top 7 there out of the 12 were drilled last year. So last year was a really, really good result for us in terms of drilling out at Fortitude North and the types of intercepts that we've been getting. The system in itself is 1.7 kilometres long. Our recent focus has been way up here in the northern area. This area here is basically all under lake cover and will require a different rig for us to continue some of the drilling. Just very briefly, this is what we a cross-section from looking to the north, so from left to right on the previous slide that you saw. That there is the structure of what we thought we had, a near vertical, roughly 4 to 5 metre wide sort of system with some good grades and some supergene type material, some leakage into the oxidised or the weathered part of the ore system there. And you can see here some pretty good results from earlier drilling. That was essentially the discovery hole, 5.7 metres at nearly 4 grams. In 2022, we did another diamond hole down dip of that to test for continuity, and we got 9.6 at about 9.6 metres at 3.3. Going on to early this year's drilling, around about April, May, this is the sort of results that we got. So some very thick intercepts, some good grade, reasonably continuous or consistent type grades around a 3.5 mark. But I guess the important bit is, in comparison to what we thought we had and what we now have identified, is there's a substantial volume change, a positive volume change in terms of the volume of mineralisation that's been intersected. So we're very excited about this and very confident that additional drilling will start to add some good volume of grade and thickness to the ore system, and we should be able to rapidly move that into a resource with some additional drilling. Just going into our lithium twist, this is a very exciting and good developing story for us. We're centred in Thailand on the Western Granite Belt. Traditionally has been a very prolific tin producer, and that's not uncommon that tin and lithium are closely associated. And certainly we do know that exists here in WA. At a glance, we've been fairly successful so far. We've identified 6 outcropping lithium-bearing pegmatite swarms. We've got an established team there of nationals in Thailand to support the exploration drive, and we're progressing through some tenements to grant that will give us approvals to actually go out and do some drilling, and we're hoping that starts early next year. Just shy of, or just over 1,700 square kilometres of applications for exploration for us. Just briefly, that's the tenement outline. As I said, they're all applications, but we're progressing some through to grant. And as I mentioned here, we're on the Western Belt. I'll just skip quickly through to a couple of important ones. China's the only jurisdiction that currently processes lepidolite. Lepidolite processing, fairly straightforward these days, well and truly managed, and cost comparative to spodumene. It's around about the same sort of thing. We've done some test work on some of our samples there at Yongxing in southern China in the Yangtze province. Importantly, and really good results there, we've got exceptional results there in terms of some of the material returned a concentrate of 5.9, call that around that to 6%. That's equivalent to the spodumene, the Australian spodumene market, with up to 97% recoveries. A tricky slide because there's not a lot of data out there, or commercial data, with regards to lepidolite. You can see here in terms of some of the lower grade ore that the lepidolite grade, the lepidolite price is just a little bit higher than the spodumene. Now, this also reflects supply and demand, where most of the supply is in spodumene, but China do mine and process lepidolite, whereas there's no other parts of the world that actually mine and process lepidolite. So that is a little bit twisted in terms of the local supply and demand situation there in China. I see no reason why a good high-grade lepidolite concentrate couldn't achieve the types of prices that are found in spodumene. And just upcoming results or exploration over the course of the next 12 months or so. We're finalising some discussions with Anglo Gold at Lake Kerry, and I guess what we really want to do is start drilling further drilling at Fortitude North, but in particular also at the lithium projects in Thailand. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Pascal. Good standing at the last moment. Well done to you, buddy. Thank you. And if you want to know more, go and have a chat with him, because I've got a feeling that your buddy gave you the 20-minute presentation, not the 15-minute presentation, didn't he? Yeah, trying to sneak it through me. Team, I've just noticed Katie, she's still up there at the back. Katie, can you stick your hand up? So Katie is from SGS, so they're located up near the coffee. I'm sure most of you have gone and got coffee already. It's a great location. So we know that one of the aims of this conference, one of them, is to connect you with potential investment opportunities. One of our other aims is to connect our companies with other members of the resources community that could assist them in any way, shape or form. It's all about connecting people with people. So I'd love for you to go up and have a chat with these guys. What do they do? Basically, if you can test it, inspect it, certify it and verify it, SGS is your team. And I was having a chat with them before, there's big vans up the back. Do you know what else they test besides the resources industry? They are doing the calibration of speed cameras in Western Australia, and they also test day spas. There you go, you could work at SGS and work in any element. There's all sorts of interesting things. Anyway, it's all about connecting you with interesting people here and investment opportunities, as the one being put in front of us by our next presenter, who is, look at this, he's a mild-mannered, experienced geophysicist. And mining engineer, and he's known for his superpower, and his superpower is securing early stage projects and delivering substantial returns to investors. That sounds good, doesn't it, team? We like that. So this is George Sakalidis, and the company he's going to give us his insights into this morning, obviously, is Magnetic Resources. He is responsible for discovery and development of gold deposits, ultimately bringing the assets to production. So let's see if we can use his superpowers on this one. Please make him welcome.
Good morning, everyone. We presented down the RIU conference down at Busselton, and there's some big announcement that we put out this morning, and I'll be running through that in this presentation. Yeah, we have 3 deposits, and the original resource that we published in February was 605,000 ounces, and I will be talking about the upgrade shortly. But in the background, share price has gone up a bit today, $1.05, market cap around 250 million, mainly held by high net worth investors. The top 4 own 45%, the top 20 own 71%. And our main location is at Laverton, which you can see on the map. Yeah, the 3 deposits were discovered over a period of about 4 years. First deposit was Hawks Nest 9, then Lady Julie Central, and Lady Julie North 4. And Lady Julie North 4 is the one that's emerging. There's a serious amount of drilling, almost 1,900 RC and diamond holes for 150,000 metres, which is 150 kilometres. So it's not really an exploration play, it's a development play. Yeah, so we basically found these deposits next door to 3 big mills. The closest mills are 10 kilometres away and 15 kilometres away. So there's obviously synergy with those companies. And those companies have some very large deposits, which they've been mining, but they've been mining there for quite a while. The Wallaby deposit and Sunrise Dam have been there for many, many years, and they're down at 1 kilometre and 1.2 kilometres depth. So the Wallaby situation is they're operating 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, so obviously there's potential synergy from what we've discovered here. These deposits are similar in some ways. Both the Wallaby and Sunrise Dam have these, I guess, stacked lode systems, which carry most of the gold, and Jupiter is similar. But what we find at Sunrise Dam are these vertical breccia zones, and they seem to be closely associated with the resources at depth. But these make their way to the surface. We think what we're finding is very similar to the Sunrise Dam situation. Sunrise Dam is a very big deposit. It's 16 million ounces. This is another map showing you where the mills are adjacent to our projects. The Mount Morgan's mill, owned by Genesis, Granny Smith, owned by Goldfields, Sunrise Dam, owned by Anglo Ashanti, and there's a small Bright Star mill as well. But these are the adjacent mills, these 2. So they're only very close to our projects. So these deposits, 3 main deposits, H and 9, Lady Julie Central, and Lady Julie North 4. Lady Julie North 4 has a major structure going southwards, and that structure appears to have many gold deposits, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. Okay, so in detail, obviously the company's a bit different. We have these operating mills next door, gives us the opportunity to toll treat or do some potential deals. Secondly, our deposits are shallow and 2 of them outcrop. So that's quite important to note. H9 is quite a widespread deposit, starts on the surface and dips 20 degrees to the east. H9, this deposit called Lady Julie Central, again starts from surface, but it has some pretty amazing intersections that start from the surface, you can see. And if we did go into operation, this would be a starter pit. We expect to start this operation, and if we were in a toll treatment situation, the negative cash flow to go into production would be less than 10 million. So it's a pretty amazing opportunity. But the main deposit is Lady Julie North 4, and this deposit has actually surprised us how thick the intersections and what good grades they've been getting. And we published our updated resource today. In this deposit alone, it's 13.1 million tonnes at 2.02 for 852,000 ounces. The intersections have been increasing with time, and you can see some of the extremely robust intersections. These are the ones that we're still chasing at depth, and it appears to keep going. So that's an amazing system. There's several slides coming up, and that gives you a bit of an indication of the drilling that we've done to date. We'll be looking at these cross sections through here. Every one of those drill holes has an intersection greater than 2 grams a tonne. And you can see some of the robust intersections. The previous resource is 605,000 ounces, include this material, but the current resource, which we announced today, is 1.25 billion ounces at 1.7 grams a tonne. But this individual deposit has higher grade, and this is one that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And you can see what we're talking about, some of the intersections here. 42 metres at 4 grams, 138 metres at 2.5, including 37 at 6.5, 24 at 2.3. I mean, they're just amazing. This drill hole is going underneath, a step out of about 100 metres, and visually it looks pretty good, but obviously we have to wait for the assays. Second cross section, I'm introducing the idea of these breccia zones, and we see fairly thick breccia silica pyrite zones. Remember, we mentioned Sunrise Dam, but these breccia zones are substantial in size, and there'll be a little diagram showing you that coming up. But some of these intersections at depth, you can see 126 metres at 2.8, 111 at 1.1, including 32 at 2. This hole will be going down shortly. The other hole, hole 35, has already started. Third cross section, again, silica pyrite zones, good intersection, 21 at 5, 30 at 5. So you can see, you know, these are pretty amazing intersections, and some of the slides coming up give you an idea on how big this system could be. This is a northeast projection, and it shows you the holes that we've put down so far and the current holes that are going down at depth. And clearly we're trying to step downwards. The deepest hole so far is a 580 metre hole. Look, if it's similar to the mines next door, they go down to 2 kilometres. So we really like to see them progressing downwards, and so far none of them have been closed off. Now this is a slide that I talked to at Busselton, and I talked about gram thickness. A lot of companies, I believe, should be using this. This is a long section through the deposit, but it's actually in the dip plane. So the projections give you the gram thickness. So anything above 25 is good. That's a 50 contour, 100 contour, and it goes to 350. But the importance of this slide, it gives you an idea on where the deposit is trending. And you can see this one here, which is the main game, continues. Hole 35, it's been drilled, and some of these have been drilled, but there's more coming. So you can see we're stepping slowly but surely downwards. But that system is an amazing system. In some ways, it's almost like a separate deposit in its own right, stuck on the edge of the north-south deposit. This alteration, a lot of geologists get extremely excited when they see this. The breccia alteration and silica pyrite. These are hydrothermal fluids coming up. They actually grind the surrounding rock, and you end up with a class of different materials. You can see some chert, porphyries, and silica pyrite stuck in the middle of it. The ground mass is ground quite fine as well. Apparently that means there's potential for a second hydrothermal phase. And even the ultramafics are bleached and altered with this texture. So everything is altered. And commonly, where the breccias actually come in with the silica pyrite, the grades go up, and that's what we're seeing at depth, where these things are coming through. We believe this is a big system, and I'll explain why we think that. Sits on this major structure called the chatterbox here, which goes for 32 kilometres, starting at north at Beasley Creek, Apollo, our deposit, Lady Julie North 4. There's another little deposit called Mount Jumbo, which we own, that trends towards Wallaby. Now that structure has been highlighted with some seismic work, and that seismic work we completed a number of years ago. But then this structural zone, which is the Lady Julie structural zone, the chatterbox here, we can see the actual dip of this is similar to what we're encountering from drilling, but at the same time, it gives us the confidence that the depth of this structure goes for 2 kilometres depth. These vertical structures are quite interesting, potential sites for, I guess, the bridges coming up from depth, as we see at Sunrise Dam. There's more work to be done on this seismic to try to understand it more, but it does give you the ingredients of a big system, potential for great depth, and we are actually seeing that from our drilling. Okay, so in the background, we're preparing mining lease applications over Lady Julie North 4. All the studies have been completed. We're obviously just updated the resource again, and we're re-optimising, but the initial optimisations that we've done point to nearly all the material that we've drilled down to about 300 metres. Lady Julie North 4 will be taken up, so it has a very strong economic basis. So this is all part of the idea of going into production, and we're pushing that as one potential arm of the company. Clearly there's synergy with the companies next door, that one of them operates 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. The other one is in care and maintenance, so there's an opportunity to deal with those companies as well. So that's the talk, and I've gone quickly, but thank you very much.
Well done. You're a quietly spoken individual, sir, are you not? I told you, he's a mild-mannered geophysicist. Go and have a chat with him and loosen him up this afternoon at our Christmas party and see what else you can get out of him. Now, our next presenter is an interesting fellow. When he's not flitting around the countryside and talking about his projects, his favourite thing to do is to be out on the ocean, doing a bit of paddling on his nice big long ski there. So given the conditions that are outside today, we're pretty lucky that he's actually deigned to be with us today and not giving us some sort of a video recording. But there's obviously a reason why he wants to be here to address us all in person. So what is it? What's so important? He had to be here with us face to face. I was having a chat with him on the way in today. He said, Chrissy, this isn't just a resurgence. No, this isn't a resurgence. This is a surge. It's a surge of activity on our West Australian lithium projects with a little serve of Tasmania on the side, if I can get to that. He was very excited about this. So obviously we are better than the water today. So would you please, mate, welcome the MD of Flynn Gold, Mr. Neil Marston.
Thanks for that introduction, Christina, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. I don't go to a lot of conferences, but I'm really pleased that we're here. I think the timing is everything. Our friends at DY6 Metals, I think, are just about to kick off their AGM today, and they've obviously been a bit of the talk of the conference so far. So I'll talk about, first of all, our company and where we fit into things. I'd like to start with this slide. That's a photo of some core, which if you come to our booth, you can see the real McCoy. It's from our exploration in Tasmania, where we've been drilling at one of our projects, and that was running at 152 grams per tonne gold. So anyone who says there's no gold in Tasmania doesn't know what they're talking about. There's our disclaimer. The company was listed in 2021. Really, the focus since the company listed has been on exploration in Tasmania, chasing Victorian-style high-grade gold. But it's also, in the process, been acquiring, since it listed, a substantial portfolio of ground in Western Australia. And obviously, the focus of that ground has been towards lithium, but there's also gold potential there. So at the moment, Western Australia, we've got about 15 granted exploration licences over over 4 main project areas. Up in the Pilbara, we've got ground at Mount Dove, where we've been doing a little bit of work, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And in the Yilgarn, we've got ground which sits close to the Forrestania Greenstone Belt and Mount Holland. And also we've got ground at Lake Johnson, which is obviously the hottest spot in town at the moment. Just a bit of a company snapshot. We have got 136 million shares on issue at the moment. Share price today is about 8.6. Gives us market cap around 11, 12 million and enterprise value of about 9. The board's made up of some very competent people. At the bottom, we've got John Ford, who's manages the Lau Resources Fund. He's a geologist and lawyer, and Lau, you'll see there, sits as one of our major investors with 3.7%. Our major shareholder is a fellow out of Melbourne called Colin Burke. He's associated with our chairman, Clive Duncan, who's spent most of his career working in Bunnings. So this is his first chairman's role for a company of our size. So he's enjoying the ride. Sam Garrett, who's our technical director, has got a number of discoveries to his name, and certainly has spent a lot of time in Tasmania as a younger geologist. So he certainly knows that part of the world very well. I joined the board earlier this year, and have really, have been brought on to help manage the West Australian side of the business, as well as what's going on in Tasmania. So our Western Australian lithium strategy really has been about securing some ground holdings close to the large lithium pegmatite deposits which exist here. To date, we've just been applying sort of the basic fundamental geological processes of soil sampling, rock chip sampling, mapping, all of those things, and that process is starting to generate some targets for us, particularly at Mount Dove and Lake Johnson. And our exploration activities at Forrestania are just about to kick off in the new year. With the activity that's going on in Lake Johnson, we're starting to fast track most of our exploration activities in the lithium. So we expect to be able to get out and do some air core drilling on some of our targets as soon as possible in the new year, once we've got the permitting completed. And we're also looking at acquiring other assets in this space. So hopefully we'll be successful in that going forward. So just to give you the Yilgarn story, we've got, as I said, 2 projects, Forrestania, Lake Johnson. Our ground's just to the east of Mount Holland. We're about within 7 kilometres of the pit at the Mount Holland project. That ground we've got on the east side, there is greenstone undercover that's been mapped or intersected with very limited amount of earlier drilling. So we think there's lots of potential there. And Lake Johnson, I don't need to tell you how much excitement's been created through TG Metals discovery there. We're 7 kilometres east of them. You'll see on that slide there in yellow, there's 3 tenements there which are held by Rio Tinto. And if you're familiar with what Rio Tinto are doing, they've just signed up a substantial joint venture with Charger Metals on their ground. So we're surrounded basically by TG6 and Rio Tinto at the moment. We've also got some ground up there at the north end of that greenstone belt, close to Mount Day. So I think there's going to be a lot more discoveries of lithium in that area in the coming months. This is just a zoom in. The tenements we've got were only granted in July this year, so we've only been out in the ground once since it was granted. And we had a brief reconnaissance exercise out there, and we were fortunate. You can see there, here you can see we mapped some pegmatites on the ground. We've got a team back there at the moment doing mapping and sampling. They basically started at the north here, and they're working their way down the the western side of that tenement there. Obviously, this ultramafic magnetic unit through here seems to be a pretty important sort of characteristic of what's going on. To the north up here is Jägermeister, which is not shown on this slide, but that's TG Metals large soil anomaly on the north side of that structure. That comes down through here, so we're seeing pegmatites also on the north side of that structure. and we'll also be having a look down the end of at this fold nose here. So over the next week or so, we'll be providing an update to the market on how that project has gone, as far as whether we've mapped any further pegmatites, and certainly the samples will then go into the lab, and we'll be hopefully reporting the results of that soil sampling program as soon as we possibly can. Forestania, as I said, not a lot of work's been done there. Interesting, whoops, sorry. A drill hole in this part of the tenement was drilled a few years ago, intersected 8 metres of pegmatites at the bottom of the hole. Assayed for lithium, not much lithium in the assays, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything because these pegmatites are zoned. They have zonation through them. So the fact that we're hitting pegmatites out here in what we consider as a stringer of the greenstone belt to the east of the main Forestania greenstone belt is quite significant. So our plan is to get out there and do some soil sampling once we've finished the current program on Lake Johnson. We've certainly been picking up additional ground there. You can see these tenements here were applied for a couple of weeks ago. That one's been in application for a while. We've just got to sort out some policies with the government on that one. So we'll certainly be putting more effort into Forestania in the new year. Up in the north, Mount Dove, that's been a very topical area, of course, with Wildcat's discovery of large pegmatites on the Tabba Tabba Shear at the namesake mine. They've also got, at a place called Bolt Cutters East, a lithium anomaly out in the granites, and that's shown up here. So our ground is down here along strike to the west from Wildcat's ground. We've got the Hemi gold mine to the north west of us. We've got Wodgina and Pilangura lithium mines to the south and southeast of us, and we've got Tabba Tabba up to the northeast. So we're really surrounded by elephants, if you describe them as that, as far as projects are concerned, whether they're gold or lithium. Our ground has got transported soils over the top of it, very little outcrop. We have done a soil sampling program, and the results of that were announced earlier this week. Sorry, wrong way. So the soil sampling came up with some interesting results. We got about 7 coherent anomalies where we've got lithium plus supporting minerals, pathfinder minerals such as cesium, rubidium. Some pegmatites were mapped up here, running at over 0.1% rubidium, so that's quite encouraging. Anomalous in lithium as well. So our plans now is to follow that up with some gravity surveys and air core surveys as soon as we can get permitting in the new year up there. So large area. We've got an application, as you can see there, to the east, which is waiting to be granted. So once that's granted, then we'll certainly have a much larger footprint to go and explore in those granites. And as I said, it's covered by soil, not much outcrop. We've mapped some pegmatites in where it does poke its nose out, so we're really quite encouraged with the potential of this area. And for those who sort of are thinking about exploration for lithium in the granites, as I said, Wildcat's got that ground with their Bolt Cutter East lithium target there. They haven't drill tested that as far as I understand, but also just to the north of us, Industrial Minerals have got their Pipangara project, which is that large pegmatite mapped in the middle of a granite where that open pit is. So they're really having some exciting times as well. So it's certainly an exciting area. In the last couple of minutes, I'll just talk about northeast Tasmania. As I said, the company floated pretty much on exploration in that area. As you know, a couple of years ago, Fosterville got everyone excited when we had the Swan Zone jewellery box of gold discovered there, and Fosterville became the cheapest gold producer in the world. So here we have northeast Tasmania, geologically an extension of the Western Origin geological feature. So it's an extension of the Victorian goldfields. It has had not an ounce of exploration effort in comparison to Victoria. You can see there in the last 12 months, over $117 million spent on gold exploration in Victoria, and in Tasmania, $8 million was spent, and of that, this company spent half of it. So we're certainly looking at areas which are untested and in our view, have great potential. So most of our effort to date has been at an area called Golden Ridge, shown here, but we've also done drilling at Portland and Warrantina. Warrantina's here, and we're currently drilling at Viatow. Golden Ridge, it's an 8-kilometre granite intrusive. Best analogy is King of the Hills, Red 5's project here in Western Australia. So we've been drilling at 3 locations there, Brilliant, Trafalgar, and along the contact with some RC drilling, which has come up with mineralisation. Trafalgar's been our best results to date. We've had multiple intersections over a 400-metre strike length, multiple zones over 100 grams per tonne gold, and you can see some of the core there. This is an initial vein model we've developed, and some of those yellow boxes just highlight anything which is over 100 grams per tonne there. And just briefly, when you look at that as a scale, we've got to the west, the Brilliant area where we've drilled, and we've got mineralisation there. At Trafalgar on the east, lots of high-grade hits. You can see some of those numbers where we did some RC drilling in between, and the distance between Brilliant and Trafalgar is 2.5 k's, which is about the same length as the Kalgoorlie super pit. So this is a big system. There's about 8 kilometres of that contact which needs to be explored, and we're really quite excited about the potential endowment that's sitting here at Golden Ridge. So that's just a brief final wrap up of what we've got planned for the next few months. You can see we've been doing a lot of work in Tasmania. The focus will shift onto drilling in Western Australia over the next few months, and then hopefully with some success we'll be really hitting WA hard later next year. Thanks for your time today. If you've got any questions or would like to come and see us at our booth, I'd be happy to have a chat later on. Thanks, Christina.
Well done now. Now you realise you have to stay here till 3 this afternoon, don't you? At least for the drinks. And we're escaping. Christopher Reid, I'm yet to find you. Don't you stay right there. I just need to go and have a chat with you in a moment if I can. Chris is our last presenter before we go to morning tea. I just need to check something with him before we do. But coming up now onto the stage, the mild-mannered man walking through the middle. Actually, when I started my conversation with you this morning, what did you say to me? You made the observation that the heavy rare earths are critical and there's not a lot in the market. Come up and join us. I think the inference may have been, or the interpretation I made was he was thinking not as good as what his company has in their sights. This is Lloyd Kaiser. He is the CEO of DY6 Metals. He has got a full tongue twister of the aforementioned elements. You've got dysprosium, terbium, neodymium, praseodymium, all of those magnets that we need to use in our EV. So all of those elements that we need for our future. So we're going to Malawi for our next investment opportunity. Would you please make welcome Lloyd, everyone?
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for joining this presentation. So I've noticed there's been quite a lot of presentations on gold and uranium sessions yesterday, and this is a rare earth project. So I'm from the rare earths industry for the last 10 years, and this is just a new project or new prospect that I'm working on. And the project is called DY6 Metals is the company, and the projects are in Malawi, and that's what I'll be talking about today. The usual disclaimer. So look, the DY6 Metals has 3 projects or critical metals projects in southern Malawi. That has proven region for hosting economic rare earth deposits. There's Machinga heavy rare earth niobium project, which I'll be talking about. We've completed a maiden drilling program for 4,500 metres. And the project recently increased the tenement area to 197 square kilometres. The other project is Selenbidwe, rare earth niobium project. We're commenced a comprehensive geochemical and geophysics program, is underway there, and the other project is called Nangala, which is a platinum-rich copper nickel. I won't be discussing that project today. So the projects are in this, what we call the Chilwa alkaline province of southern Malawi. It consists of these alkali granites, nepheline cyanide, and numerous carbonatite complexes. So notably the Kangankundi project that most people might be aware of is a carbonatite project or resource that's 40 kilometres east of Machinga, where we are exploring and doing the drilling. There is other groups such as Songwe Hill, which is a Makango project, which is quite developed. It's at a DFS stage. You've got other operators in southern Malawi, including Lloyd Mining and Metals on niobium, and Sovereign Metals, that's rutile and graphite. So look just on our shareholding. So DY6 Metals was listed in June. It was on the back of a strategic cornerstone investors, two of them that have a holding of 21%. They're two Chinese groups. They're involved in diversified sort of manufacturing and composite materials, semi-finished materials for use in the end-use markets in transportation industry, clean energy technologies. You know, they are quite interested in heavy rare earths and looking for sourcing of heavy rare earths, and that's why this company was put together. So the top 20 holds 60% of the stock. It's got a small market cap, it's only 5.4 million. Enterprise value is 0.7 million. So look at with 58 million shares on issues, I think there's a lot of opportunity going forward from where we are today. So I'd like to talk about the Machinga project. So the Machinga license that we have, we've got two tenements. One looks like a little bit like a horseshoe, and the other one's a wider tenement. We recently had the EL 705 granted early this month, and so we have a lot of background information on Machinga, and acquired all the data at the beginning of the year. So that uranium radiometric there was sourced from the Malawian government. So the drilling program that was undertaken by DY6 this year for 4,500 metres was 35 holes of RC, was based around sort of targeting the Machinga main northern anomalous zone. As you can see, it's quite close to where the tenement boundary is, since we couldn't move into the next tenement because that wasn't granted to us. We prepared and sort of done our own sort of soil samples, but we also had plenty of rock chips and other soil samples from historic sampling by Globe. So the RC drill program within that followed the historic drill results for 4,000 metres. And what we're finding is that the RE mineralisation system is containing elevated DYTB, which is obviously essential for EV traction motors. So you can see that that area that we've actually drilled in is only 400 by 400 metres. The strike zone, or the anomalous zone there, is 7 kilometres from north to south. So we've got plenty of room there and plenty of area to explore as we move into more drilling next year. So this year, a few months ago, we reported the completion of our phase 1 drilling program at Machinga for 3,600 metres of RC drill holes, about 35 holes. And it's consistent, the results are consistent with the historic drill holes of 4,000 metres. You can see here, as I pointed out, all the drilling was conducted quite close to where the tenement boundary was. We would have liked to have gone further over into the northeast, but we were unable to, but we'll look at doing more work in the future in that area. So we've got some significant assays for our heavy rare earth hard rock deposit, sort of ranging sort of multiple metres between sort of 0.5 and 1%, and several meters between 1 and 2%. So the host rocks here are cyanite, and the mineralisation is widespread, but it's in this hydrothermal breccia. Apart from the mineralisation for rare earths that we're looking for, there's also niobium and zirconia. There is tantalum in there. So with the results with all the assay results, we're sort of looking at the full assays, including non-rare earths, to see what other elements are there and then start to do some XRD analysis on the samples. So this is a cross-section or a wireframe of just one of the targets, and it's sort of striking northwest to southwest, sort of dipping 35 degrees northeast. There's excellent continuity with the radiometrics, and the mineralisation. What we're seeing is all in this hydrothermal breccia. So the results confirmed today. So I've just done some estimates just on all of our RC. We're looking at a cut-off grade of 0.25%. To see what sort of RIU distribution we have. So we've got NdPr around 15%, so it's not a pure light rare earths project, similar to some of the other groups that might be up to 20%. And our DYTB is running around 3.7%. So our value will be in the DYTB. You know, at today's rare earth prices, our value is about 50% from DYTB, and we're getting about 30% from NdPr. Most of the light rare earth projects that are in the market, most of their value comes from NdPr, which is about 90%. So look, just to move on with the Selin Bidway rare earth project, it's early stage, so we picked this tenement up. It's about 24 square kilometres. It's further south, close to the Mozambique border. There was some soil samples that were provided to us from other work that was done by a previous party. They only sort of covered 100 metres by 100 metres, maybe 10% of the area. So we've started doing an extensive sort of geochemical soil sampling program for 500 samples, covering about 50,000 linear metres, and also ground radiometric survey. So we're probably about 90% of the way through. And then we're starting very shortly the high resolution magnetic radiometric airborne survey. So with all of that data set that we'll obtain, and we'll hopefully have that probably around end of January, we'll be able to then decide on what the drill program will be for Selin Bidway. I just wanted to touch on, before I sort of move on a little bit further into the projects and what we're up to over the next sort of 6 months, is just what's happening in Malawi. So Malawi is quite a stable jurisdiction. It's all English speaking. It's got a very supportive government when it comes to mining. They want to obviously increase the mining GDP within the country. You know, there's hydropower, probably 90% of it is hydropower. There's good roads and rail that goes from Malawi to Nacala port. So that's where the major port will be for most of the companies that will be producing either concentrates or some finished products. So I think, despite what maybe people might think, because it is landlocked, that the infrastructure is actually very good. So look, I was just going to move on to a couple of market slides. I know that not everyone's talking about their prospects, but in case that, instead of talking about NdPr, I've been marketing NdPr for a better part of about 10 years, but I thought it'd be nice just to talk about dysprosium, terbium. So this graph here is just showing where the EV forecast will be in the future. I mean, up here I've got a 20, 30, 50 million. I know Argonauts yesterday had something from Wood Mackenzie that's showing 40 million, so it's probably 40, 50 million. EV market this year is probably around 14 million, so that's hybrid plus battery electric. And so demand just for magnets used for EVs around 30,000 tonnes. The actual output for all of magnets globally is probably around 240,000 tonnes. It's grown quite a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. And it'll grow even further over the next 7 to 10 years. Overall demand for magnets used in high-end applications such as wind, electric power steering and EV motors, etc., will probably go up to about 350,000, 400,000 tonnes. So there will be a shortage in demand for DYTB. We probably need 4 times more than where the current demand is. And the risk is where that will come from. So I guess the market opportunity with the heavy rare earths is that there is a shrinking shortage of DYTB, and it's mostly concentrated. Production of DYTB is all in China. This graph is actually sort of this historic official quota that comes out of China. I know Argonauts had a graph earlier yesterday showing that, you know, supply and production processing of rare earths is still concentrated in China. But one thing that's particularly important here is that it is expanding the quota system, because the appetite and growth for rare earths is growing, particularly in China. But in the southern mines that control a lot of the dysprosium or heavy rare earths or ionic clays is shrinking. And a lot of, at least 40% of heavy rare earths is sourced from Myanmar. So there's a real appetite actually for Chinese companies to source overseas and to be involved in projects, particularly for heavy rare earths. And so with the 2 cornerstones, they will want to collaborate and participate further in the development of some of the projects that are under DY6. So look at, with next steps, with Machinga, we've still got the 8 diamond drill assay results are expected in early December. We've got early December there, but I think it's probably more later December. We are working on a geological model as we speak. I'll probably be looking at where we're at in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have that 4,000 metres of drilling, historic drilling, and our own 4,000 metres to have an inferred resource model coming up in the future. And we're looking to do further soil sampling in the extended EL and along that contour of the anomalous zone further south. So you can see here that, you know, with a strike sort of zone of around 7 kilometres, we've got a lot of area that we can cover. So we're going to do more sampling to the south of where we've drilled, and with that information and correlation with our other RC information, we'll start to plan another drilling program. So we've started some mineralogy work, and we're doing some QEM scan and metallurgy work going forward. And with Cell and Bidwell, we'll be looking forward to receiving all those results in the near future. And the future work program, that's what sort of looks like with Machinga. Once we get all those results, we'll be aiming for another phase 2 drilling program in February of Q1. And then we'll be working away at mineralogy and composite, producing a composite and starting a metallurgical test work program. That's my sort of area of expertise. I'm not a geologist, I'm a chemical engineer. And Cell and Bidwell, once we get all that soil sample and assay results, we'll be aiming for a mating drilling program in April. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Lloyd, I think that's the closest I've gotten to one of our presenters in the last 2 days. You did well. You're skating on thin ice there, my man. Well done. Great presentation, though. Nice to see James Buchanan standing in up the back there. If you're looking for a fellow with a couple of drill rigs, he may just be able to find you some in his big posse up there. Now, you will have noticed when Lloyd came up on the stage that I whisked our next presenter outside, Mr. Christopher Reid. Now, I did that for a reason, because when I look through all the details of what he's doing, he's got a fair bit going on, and I wanted to make sure I had it all correct. So if you start back in 2009, you'll remember he acquired the Mount Marion lithium project. He developed that 2015, wasn't it, Christopher? Yep. So you're ahead of the curve there, and he was doing that with Ganfeng Lithium, and he's doing it again. He's back ahead of the curve. So when you think about those earth-saving lithium batteries that you've all got in your EVs, how long do they last for again? 7, 8 years? Yeah, 7, 8 years, and then we need to recycle them. And every year, I mean, I look outside now, there's so many more electric vehicles. So the number of batteries that need to be recycled is increasing. He's already identified that. He's nipped over to Germany, and he's in the process of building a lithium battery recycling plant. So he's developed projects at either end of that lithium supply chain. He's got a presence in every step, and just recently, just next to his old stomping ground in Kalgoorlie, Chris is from Kalgoorlie, I'm from Kalgoorlie as well, so 50 k's from Coolgardie, he may have found his next lithium deposit. Let's welcome Chris and Neometals.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Thanks to RIU Vertical Events for putting it on, to Argonaut to sponsor. I must admit you forgot MinRes as our key joint venture partner in developing Mount Marion. I need to thank Chris too. He'd get upset if I didn't mention him. It gives me great pleasure to tell you about our new Spargos lithium project, previously known as the Spargos nickel project. We were alerted by the actions of some of our neighbours about 4 months ago, and I'll tell you what we've found so far. But just to tell you, who Neometals is, we obviously believed in lithium early, got into Mount Marion, developed that. It took us 6 years and through a couple of pricing cycles to develop that, with MinRes as the operator and Ganfeng as the off-taker. We then moved, once we were in construction there, to move into battery recycling. We wanted more exposure to all the battery materials. The best way to do that was to recycle the batteries at the end. There was no one there in 2017. So we developed a process over a number of years. We have an operation at the moment in Hilkenbach, Germany, and we're currently building a plant for Mercedes-Benz in Kuppenheim. That will finish, it'll start commissioning sort of mid next year and be completed by the end of next year. So, all of our technologies, and that's, in terms of processing, that's where a lot of our skills lied. What we've been doing over the last sort of 2 years is demonstrating first quartile operating costs and low carbon footprint. And they're important, obviously, when you're selling plants and licensing technologies. We've got fantastic industry partners, both in the battery recycling business as customers with Mercedes-Benz, Steel Company of Canada. And ultimately what we want to deliver to our shareholders is really the Franco-Nevada of battery materials royalties, right? So instead of leveraging cash, we're leveraging our technologies. The battery recycling, every battery recycling plant will generate 8 different products, which I'll go into next. So from battery recycling, you get graphite, lithium, cobalt, nickel, you get copper, aluminium, manganese, and ammonium sulfate, which is our tailings product, which is a fertilizer. So recycling for us was the logical step. So we went from upstream mining to end of the cycle recycling. We have some interests in between. And the reason is because, we can see that there's going to be forecast lithium deficits, especially out to 2023. The brine producers haven't really produced that much. It's been the hard rock miners and the Chinese converters that have added the majority of new lithium carbonate units since 2015. But recycling will take over from mine production somewhere between 2038 and 2040. But that's a long way off. Until then, we need a lot more spodumene and spodumene conversion to supply the lithium that's needed to fuel the EV. And so that's where you can see the gap between the possible, probable and operating mines and what we think are the base case and upside case for electric vehicles. So Neometals, we out of Mount Marion, we still have 70% of the Eli technology, with MinRes owning 30%. That's a process that we've been developing with them for about a decade, which is really about converting lithium chloride through to lithium hydroxide. It'll make a fundamental difference in brine or operating costs for lithium, Not so relevant when the lithium price is $75,000, but once you get down to 20,000 and below, it starts becoming much more interesting. We have some investments in a cathode and anode maker. The cathode guys are here in Australia. The anode guys are based over in San Diego. Small interest in a cell producer. But our core business is the battery recycling because it delivers us all of those commodities back at the lowest points in the cost curve with the lowest carbon footprint. But I digress. I'm happy that we stumbled back into some upstream lithium. So it was very, very fortuitous. So originally Spargos was a 1970s nickel boom prospect, about 50 k's southwest of Coolgardie. You know, it's a nice big slab of greenstone on the Ida Fault. It's a very, very interesting address. Obviously, you know, you've got a number of very significant deposits along the Ida Fault. You know, around us, you've got St George, then you've got Metalhawk, then you've got Orabanda West Farmers, you've got Mount Isa, you've got Hancock, and then right up the end, you've got Timmy Goyder. So essentially, you know, we went straight through to the database and back starting at the original 1968 Cell Trust exploration and diamond drill logs, going then through to Spargos exploration and, you know, identifying all of these pegmatites that are logged. But when you're looking for nickel, you know, you don't assay them. So we found more than 20 pegs. And then it's a matter of, well, you know, some of these diamond core holes go back into the 70s. So we were only able to locate 11 out of the 29 drill holes. And so we sent the boys out to the lab, out to our storage in Welshpool and pulled out the core, and we've got pegmatites with visible spodumene in them. You've got to make all the cautionary statements and an estimate of there. But, you know, we can see the spodumene crystals, the black light shows it up, 20 log pegmatites in 29 holes, and not one assay for lithium of any MAT pegmatite, which is crazy. So there's definitely potential for multiple stacked pegmatites. That's what it looks like under the core, under the black light. In terms of, you know, what the geology looks like, it's just textbook, right? So, you know, we've got a granite source, at least one. At this stage, we think it's from the western one, the Woolgangi Monza granite. That seems to be where the pegmatites are sort of becoming deeper and approaching that. Then they sort of outcrop going to the northeast. So north of this pegmatite dike. So essentially what you want is you want a source. You have the prote dikes open up, and then you've got some pegmatites on the contacts between the ultramafics and the basalts, some the ultramafics and the felsics. And this map is something that we recently discovered, never digitized. It was a 1970 Spargos exploration map. So we were very, very pleased to find that there were the pegmatites at the surface. So north of that Proterozoic dike, we've got nothing except pegmatites intersected in diamond drilling and RC drilling, which is not a bad start. South of there, we've got absolutely no drilling and outcropping pegmatites, and I've got a little bit in the bag there if anyone wants to come up and have a look after this. So, you know, we've got 13 interpreted units there, and feel like a kid in a candy shop, right? What a beautiful place to start. And analogous settings to make it major local deposits. It really reminds me of Mount Marion, where we had the depot granite, we had a prote dike to the north, and then you've got the intrusions. And so the pegmatites were coming up between the softer ultramafics and the basalts. Fortunately, it didn't stick out of the ground like Mount Marion did, right? Because otherwise someone else would have found it. So there is a little bit of cover on some of them. So, you know, we are very, very keen to get stuck into this. In terms of strike length, we've got 8 strike kilometres, and strike length of pegmatites, we've got them identified over about 2 kilometres, and there's multiple parallel outcropping pegmatites. So watch this space. So, you know, the main thing to do, certainly over the next couple of months while it's warm, we'll be doing a lot of mining from the desk, building up a multi-layered database, resampling and assaying holes, going through, relogging the old RC chips. We'll be giving an update I'd say early December, around, you know, what we've found in the intervening period and some assays and you know, more visual intercepts once we bring them back. And yeah, you know, we've signed a heritage agreement. We'll have to do a survey before we can get in and execute the drill programs. But, you know, in terms, we've got 55 square kilometres over 8 strike kilometres with all of the pegmatites, and you've got historic pegmatites in diamond drilling. So, you know, what a fantastic place to start. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I told you to be short and sharp. You can come and get us at the coffee break. Thank you.
You're just trying to sweet talk them all by getting them out to morning tea early, aren't you, Christopher? There you go. And there you've had it. So, team, we've got a break, about 35 minutes. Thanks to Chris. Go and have a chat with him, have a chat with our other presenters. You will no doubt hear the bell ringing ever so gently, and that's your signal to come back in.